Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, and everybody else all across the world, welcome to the first ever ninth episode of the Screen and Pitch Project featuring your hosts, MGK and
Hey all.
what's up, guys? So, continuing in this series of talking about our favorite players from the Big Six Premier League clubs. Today, we're going to talk about the club that has dominated the last decade in the Premier League, Man City. They really came into prominence in like 2007-8, where there were rumors that they're going to sign Kaká and then ended up signing Robinho, uh, which at that point was a big coup, but obviously didn't turn out as well. Um, when
So came with a very funny story from Robinho on what
yeah,
club he
yeah.
thought he was joining.
Yeah, he thought he was joining United. He thought he was joining United, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
He,
yeah.
he didn't
Uh,
realize there was another club in Manchester.
yeah. Uh, like Robinho and Stephen Ireland absolutely destroyed Arsenal during that early Man City era. But they picked a lot of Arsenal players. Bakary Sagna, Kolo Toure, Adebayor, Samir Nasri. Then they got in Mancini. They won their first Premier League title. They won their second with Pellegrini, I think.
Yep.
And then they got the coup of the century with Pep Guardiola as their coach in 2016, I think. And since then, it's just been Man City. Six of the last seven Premier League titles, four in a row, which has never been done in English top flight history. Some absolutely incredible football, sometimes utterly so dominant and such a stranglehold that it also becomes boring. But hey, who's going to argue with the results, right? Certainly not me, because I don't want an army of lawyers up against me. So, without further ado, Tayal, any thoughts on City, how you approach the list?
Yeah, I mean, they've been absolutely dominant. Definitely was a struggle to remember anything City related pre 2010. I mean, they did have a couple of ballers before then too, but it really just transformed with money coming in and then, of course, the Mancini Pellegrini era. But I think Pep has been so dominant that I've almost forgotten Mancini and Pellegrini also. It's just like
Yeah,
Pep has just taken over the club in the same way like Arsene took over Arsenal and Sir Alex took over Manchester United, where it's
yeah,
just you associate the manager and the club so tightly together. And because City was not relevant really before 2010 in our lifetimes, of course,
yeah.
they do have a history that goes beyond before we were born. Um, it's just become such a Pep club for me that even though like the coolest City moments happened before Pep even came, he's just like completely rewritten that club, and it's kind of interesting to see how like a manager can just redefine what a club is.
I think also credit where it's due. A lot of clubs get a lot of money, but City have
Yeah,
been very, very smart in how they've spent it, the structures they've put in place. They got the best football people in. Yeah, I mean, this list is basically 2010 onwards from me. Ilano, maybe I should have put him somewhere in just to be all hipster, but I mean, I didn't remember him
yeah.
till I was talking about this.
And then I think the other thing as a Chelsea fan who again has supports a club with a solid amount of money,
Mm-hmm.
the contrast of what Pep built at City versus what Chelsea did churning through manager after manager also really stands out. Where it's just like, despite the expectations, the ability to deliver year on year and pretty much never ever slip up is
Yeah,
pretty remarkable.
yeah, just mind-boggling consistency that
Yeah,
Pep Guardiola just brought in, right? And I feel like with City, there's this almost like they feel so surgical that it's hard to evoke any emotion. Like,
yeah,
I don't want United to win.
yeah,
I would not want Chelsea to win. Liverpool, I kind of like them, but I still wouldn't want them to win. City, I'm just like,
yeah.
they win. It's like, yeah, okay, fine, whatever, right? Maybe this is how the Bundesliga feels with Bayern. Like, maybe, I don't know. Maybe we're in that era and we don't even know it. I mean, if you look at the
Yeah.
last 7 years, we are in that era and we don't know it.
Or we're in denial. Yeah,
Yeah, or we are in denial. But yeah, that's who Man City have been, at least since Pep came in. So yeah, we will get into the list, but before that, we have another sponsor on board today. So are you tired of liberal snowflakes telling you to buy ethically farmed, organic, pesticide-free food? GMO? How about GTFO? Introducing only cans. Vegetables, meat, fish, fruit, all farmed cruelly, harvested brutally, and preserved in salt, sugar, fat, and the greatest man made chemicals on God's green earth. Served to you in a convenient tin can with AI packaging. That's right, AI packaging. Only cans is cheap, easy, tasty, and has zero long-term side effects because you'll die way too soon for any of those to kick in anyway. Only cans, because food doesn't need rights, it just needs to be right.
Sounds like something someone with the worm in their brain would really enjoy. No comments, political comments here.
Hey, for all we know, we might have worms in our brains. I mean, there's microplastics in us already, so
That is
uh,
true.
you never know. All right, so guys, so top 10 favorite Man City players, starting off with our honorable mentions in three, two, one. Cool. So I'll start. Haaland could possibly end up as the greatest goal scorer in Premier League history if he sticks around. There's something awe-inspiring about someone who's like 6'4" but has such frightening speed. Got an amazing nose for goal and he's an amazing finisher. But despite his limitations, you're always on edge nowadays when you're watching Man City because you know that Erling Haaland, much like Randy Orton does his RK out of nowhere, can score a goal out of nowhere. Behind every touch of the ball, there has to be a thought, is something that Dennis Bergkamp said in his autobiography. I feel like that applies to Bernardo Silva, where he just captures this philosophy brilliantly, where he's just so intelligent, understands Pep's system perfectly, can dribble, can pass, can hold the ball, super versatile, can play on the wings, can play anywhere in midfield, has even played left back recently. Maybe not much end product, but everything else from a midfielder, Bernardo Silva has it. Unlike Ilkay Gundogan, who's a great goal scoring midfielder at his peak, again, like Bernardo, he's super intelligent, super versatile, which sometimes leads to being underappreciated. But he's come in clutch for City, especially during one of the recent title run-ins, and also comes across as a very likable guy. Riyad Mahrez, right? Leicester legend, and just so fun to watch when he's really on it. The thing I associate most with Riyad Mahrez is a long ball, he just kills it with one touch and then starts dribbling at a defender and then curl it in. Again, has had some great second halves of seasons for City to come in clutch. Raheem Sterling is the first player I think of when I think of the peak Centurion City when they played with super wide wingers and the goal tactic of go to the byline and then you do a cutback. Raheem Sterling was either the guy cutting it back or tapping it in or sometimes missing because he had a lot of misses as well. But at his peak, really fun, dribbly, entertaining sort of winger to watch, right? So that's my honorable mentions.
Yeah, I'll get to Bernardo a little bit later. Riyad and Raheem didn't make my top 10 list. No racism here or anything. But both are fantastic players. I think Riyad Mahrez's free kicks are incredible. Those curlers that came out of nowhere, the crossfield balls he also would be on both sides of, both giving them and receiving them, killing it, as you mentioned. Fantastic player to watch on the ball, like true savant. Sterling, I never liked. I've always hated, so not much comments. I mean, the only thing I like is the way he runs. He drives me insane. He drives me insane at Chelsea. I've always kind of probably underrated him, even though his pace and his work rate does open up a lot of opportunities. It's just a player I never trusted ever.
Fair enough.
Uh, the other two, Gundogan and Haaland, are on my honorable mentions as well. Gundogan, I see as just kind of such a solid attacking midfielder. Comes up with clutch goals, kind of never puts a foot in the wrong place. I think when he went to Barcelona for a year, he was just like, what the hell is this? I need to be back in like a proper organization, and came back to City. But he's just kind of a very efficient workhorse, and I always respect those kind of players. Comes up with kind of goals out of nowhere, makes those clutch assists, makes those late runs very Lampard-like, to kind of pick up a couple of very clutch goals for City. And then coming to my other three honorable mentions, number one is Carlos Tevez, who almost made my top 10, just because he was kind of that new Argentinian dominant goal scorer. Unfortunately for him, he was kind of surpassed by another Argentinian, which is why he didn't make my top 10. But what a fantastic striker. Just a machine, physically dominant despite his small stature, and would just bounce off defenders. Nobody could really get a clean tackle in, and just a crazy work rate as well. Then you have Mr. Phil Foden, currently, I think maybe City's most crucial player. I think Haaland, despite his numbers, is slightly less crucial as some of the midfield talent at City. For some reason, I feel like Pep's system and the efficiency of City makes me underappreciate Phil Foden a little bit, where he does have a lot of flair to his game, but he's just so ruthlessly efficient that I don't find it as exciting anymore. And then I think the player I would want on Chelsea the most out of these, apart from maybe Holland, is Kyle Walker, just for the consistency and the amount of things he opens up with his raw pace. So many times you watch City pressing up kind of everyone on an attack with just Kyle Walker roaming the back line, cutting down any corner counter, and just using that raw pace to open up things offensively that wouldn't be open otherwise. His utility is incredible, but he's also an incredibly boring player. I don't think I've ever seen him do anything creative in his life with the ball, but ruthlessly efficient, kind of a Pep hallmark.
I'll speak about Walker later. Tevez, for me, like it was introduced to him with Man United, so I just associate him more with that time, even though I know that he played, I think, probably longer for City and did more there.
Yeah, I think
Phil Foden is not on my list because I feel like he plays in a position where I've just enjoyed so many City players way more than I have enjoyed Phil Foden. That doesn't mean that he's not good or I don't think he's good. This is a list of favorite players, and for me, Phil Foden, compared to his predecessors in those same roles, just isn't at the same level of appeal to me. All right, so moving on into the top 10 then, starting off with number 10 in 3, 2, 1.
so. I'm starting out with my favorite football analyst on TV who entertains me for every single second. I also like how you picked an absolute entertainer for your number 10 pick, but it's Micah Richards who just has me dying laughing every single time I see him on. His iconic quotes like, "You don't know where I'm from, dog," representing Clint Dempsey from one of my home states of Texas, is just hilarious. I also think he was a solid right back for a couple of years for City until they got Zabaleta, who very clearly surpassed him. But this is purely for his personality, charisma, and the stories he has about his time at City. So I just really enjoy personalities. And for me, he also represents a bit of like the start of the real City dominance. So it's bringing in a lot of young talent, letting them compete, and then kind of being ruthless about who you keep and who you let go. So as soon as they realized Zabaleta is the one, Micah Richards was kind of discarded as a City player.
Yeah.
But just from his pure personality, I just find him so incredibly entertaining and everything I want in a football pundit. Also incredibly self-aware.
Yeah.
So that's why he's made my top 10.
Yeah, fair. I mean, in FIFA 07 or 09, I used to sign a lot of wonder kids or players who end up playing for City. Three of them I remember were Micah Richards, Nigel de Jong, and another person I will mention later. I don't remember much about Micah Richards, the player, except that he was very, very fast
Yeah.
for someone that well built. But he's a fantastic pundit. He brings so much life to what is usually very sanitized and boring. But the entire panel, right? Kate Abdo, Henri Carragher, and Micah Richards. Those are the clips I keep my eye out for. So for me, he's a pundit much more than a City player. So Mario Balotelli. I was a big Mario Balotelli fan because I used to watch him at Inter and he had two absolute standout attributes. I mean, he had a lot of talent, okay? And I think his antics overshadowed the fact that this guy was a really, really good young player. But two of his attributes were absolute standouts, right? One was his ice cold penalties. He was so good at taking penalties. And the other was his insane shot power with minimal backlift. He once took a free kick from like 40 yards out, minimal backlift, hit the post or went in or something for Inter, assisted to the most iconic City goal. And when he was switched on, he had an aura about him that screamed, "I'm the best." But he also makes this list not just because I was a fan of, him on the pitch, but because he was so entertaining off it. Got caught speeding, had 5,000 in cash in his car. They asked him why, and he's like, "Because I'm rich." Threw darts at a youth player. Him and his friends set off fireworks in his house and set it on fire. And for the 2, 3 years he was here, he was at the eye of the storm. And buddy, you ask why always me, but you kind of have to look in the mirror sometimes and see some of the stuff that you're doing. But when switched on, what an absolute great player, right? And he was really, really good for Italy as well. I think the Euros 2012,
Yep.
Euros, he was an absolute It was really, really good for them.
Yeah, incredible talent, incredible personality. I think he's the first one I remember consistently doing that stutter step penalty, but when he did it, it was more like nonchalant than trying to game the system. I feel like Bruno, Jorginho, who do it now, are more trying to game the system, while Balotelli was just like, I can't be bothered, but I'm going to score anyway, which was kind of his attitude towards pretty much everything. It's like, sometimes I'm bothered, sometimes I'm not, but I'm just so gifted that I can pull off things that nobody else can. His strikes were just like
Sheer power.
rockets. Yeah, it's just pure power, can go anywhere. He's not on my top 10, but in terms of pure entertainment, he probably should be, because there are very few players who just you can't keep your eyes off of. The main thing with Balotelli was just the inconsistency. He would go stretches where, I mean, you don't even know whether he or not he's on the pitch. He's fighting with the manager, he's arguing with teammates. But in terms of just entertainment and watchability, easily a top 10 player.
Yeah. Cool. Moving on to number 9 in 3, 2, 1. Oh, wow. I was not expecting him to be this low in your list. So, FIFA 2009, right? I signed Micah Richards, I signed Nigel de Jong, and I signed Vincent Company. And they all turned out to be like 90 plus players for Arsenal in my career mode. So when Vincent Company went to Man City, A, I felt like a scout just sitting in Chennai, and I was like, why are you guys wasting my potential? But B, I also was rooting for him to do well just because I was like, oh, this is my player. Turned out to be way better than anything I could have imagined. He was like the John Terry in a way of Man City, where he was the no nonsense leader at the back who came up with some absolutely crucial goals. The Leicester strike into the postage stamp is iconic. But then he also scored against Liverpool in one of the two crazy title races he had. He sort of clutched either a draw or a win against Liverpool, and that ensured that City stayed ahead. And both of them won like 15 games in a row to close out the season. Injuries hampered his time on the pitch, but whenever he was on it, he emanated this presence, right? This absolute solidity and calmness that just spread over the entire City backline when Vincent Company was playing. And he just came across as such a likable, hard but fair centre back, and absolute stalwart for City, and like one of those guys who really set up the foundation for the success that they're having today.
Yeah, no, I'll talk more about Company a bit later. But the Belgium I've picked for number 9 is KDB. If I had to pick the skill set of a player to have as someone who doesn't play football at all, I probably would put KDB. Can do any pass with either foot, can dribble, can shoot, puts in a shift defensively. Like in terms of raw skill set, KDB is just incredible. And this is just broad raw skill set, not even getting into the fact that he's probably the best passer that the Premier League has ever seen. He's just been so incredible, so efficient, and you can definitely see Pep's teams with KDB and without. That bite is just different without KDB. You replace pretty much anybody else on the Pep teams, you have kind of a like for like replacement. You take out one Silva, you put in another, you get Foden, you have Grealish, you have Mahrez. There were always replacements for pretty much every other player, at least attacking wise, except KDB. Now, the reason why he's number 9 and not higher is because I felt like he slightly is a product of the Pep system to a small level, where when you really see how he plays for Belgium and the impact for Belgium, it's just never been there at all. So I'm knocking him a little bit because of the national team impact. Because compared to my favorite Belgian player, Eden Hazard, who would dominate every time for Belgium, KDB has never really flashed that in any international tournament. So for that, and because of the fact that Hazard is clearly a better player, KDB is number 9.
Maybe he's a better player for Belgium, but in the Premier League, I will disagree. Anyway, on KDB, I will speak a little later. I'm not going to talk about him right
Yes.
now.
I would
Let's
be
move
shocked
on.
if you didn't.
Let's move on to number 8, right? In 3, 2, 1.
So this is really the first City player I really remember as Sean Wright Phillips, the magician who joined Chelsea for, at that time, a huge fee of 21 million. And there was so much hype and excitement around him because he was this incredible little magician on the pitch. I think initially thought too small to even compete in the Premier League, and kind of when he was part of the academy was kind of a talent that everybody was a little skeptical about just because of the size, but the flashes, what he could do on the pitch, the kind of tenacity, the excitement, the flair was all there. Everything you would want in a modern winger, he had. And he was kind of the first real City player I remember. Dominant, fantastic on the pitch, kind of part of that first real City Premier League team. Left, came to Chelsea, had kind of a few injury-riddled seasons before going back to City, and then embraced as kind of a club legend. I think probably, even as a Chelsea fan, I could see the connection that City fans had with him, especially before they got into this title-winning era. And he was kind of that defining talent for the team. And on the pitch, he could really do everything. He would, despite his size, he would take on bigger defenders. He would get chopped down, especially early 2000s Premier League roughing was a lot, and tackles were a lot more brutal than what we see now. And despite his diminutive stature, he would just keep getting up, keep fighting on, and really just a player I wished was not injured for Chelsea, just because of the magical moments that I saw with City.
Yeah, like he was I would say almost like the Sterling prototype. Like he was very
Yeah.
similar player because he was pre 2010 City primarily. I just didn't really consider him for this list. He was a good player. I remember him being very dribbly and very
Yes.
mazy. My number 8 is Ederson. Even though I think Alisson's a better keeper, and I actually don't remember any saves that Ederson's made, to be really frank. Um, I remember him as the guy who sort of brought the Manuel Neuer style goalkeeping to the Premier League. I remember his crazy long passes, the fact that he was basically a midfielder in goal, and that instantly transformed City into always having like almost an extra man. He has this weird, unsettling, dominating aura about him. He looks like he could be part of a gang with all those weird tattoos. The smiley one is my favorite. But he just has this aura when he's on the ball, and he can just pick out a 70-yard pass to whoever's running on to the end of it. So just for revolutionizing goalkeeping in the Premier League, and he's still, in my opinion, the best ball playing keeper in the league, right? Alisson is better as an overall keeper, but on the ball, Ederson is head and shoulders above anyone, and that's why he's number 8 for me.
Yeah, incredible keeper. He didn't make my list, but truly a transformative player. You could see the way City changed post. I don't remember who was there between after Joe Hart and before Ederson.
Claudio Bravo, I think.
Oh yes, Claudio Bravo. But he transformed kind of the counters that City could do. Every once in a while comes up with this insane assist directly to Haaland. Goalkeeper to striker is not even shocking with City anymore.
Yeah,
And the things he can do on the pitch is something that nobody else can really duplicate at the goalkeeper position,
yeah,
which always is something that I think stands out when we're making favorite player lists. You're always looking at someone at a position who does something that nobody else can do. And Ederson is definitely one of those players.
yeah. Moving on to number 7 in 3, 2, 1. Kind of the anti-Balotelli, right? I always felt he was a really great striker, and he was just underrated and underappreciated because he was playing at the same time as an all-timer for Man City. So I called him the anti-Balotelli because he didn't have as much raw talent as Balotelli. Very few people do. But he was so professional, so hardworking, and would come up with a lot of goals, right? I think he scored like regularly in double digits, around 15 goals every season he played for City. Scored the equalizer against QPR in that game, in that moment for Man City. And such a great option to have to sub in, rotate, or even start in a two-man strike force because he was that good. Primarily on this because I used to feel like, okay, we're not going to sign any striker for like a lot of money. And we had Olivier Giroud, and I was like, you know what? Edin Dzeko is like an upgrade on him. Maybe we can just get him off City. Was something I used to think about because when I watched him, because it felt realistic, and that's why he's on this list. He's surprisingly high up on this list just because of that connection I had with him.
Yeah, Jacko, I associate more as like a workman-like striker, not like a flair striker. So not someone I really thought too much about. Honestly, half forgot that about his City era. But he was an extremely consistent player. I think went off to Roma for a bit and then has jumped around after that as well.
Yeah.
But kind of like I would say more of like a solid, not spectacular player. So not someone I really thought about for a top 10 list, but
Yeah,
definitely see the value in a player like him. So while he's not the most uh, like eye catching, definitely very valuable.
yeah. I'm just oh but he went to Roma and won the top scorer there. Wow. He was also Bundesliga top scorer. So
Oh wow.
yeah. So I mean, like respect.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
he could churn out numbers.
yeah,
My number seven, Mr. Ballon d'Or, is Rodri. And just associate him with two things: thunderstrikes and tactical fouls. Both extremely crucial for City for the way Pep plays. And his absence currently is kind of showing his importance to the way Pep wants City to play.
yeah,
The amount of thunderstrikes and heartbreaking goals this guy has scored as a defensive midfielder is absurd. And
yeah,
the thing is, those shots are so clean.
yeah,
They're so pure. And every single time it felt like, okay, 88th minute and onwards, suddenly I have to worry about Rodri scoring a goal. For the first 87 minutes, all I have to worry about is stupid tactical fouls that drive everybody insane. Every opposing fan is insane, at least, which he somehow never ever gets a yellow card for. But he is just kind of, I think, one of the most critical players for the modern Pep era, and is against, for some reason, City has this tendency, or Pep has this tendency, of having like five backups at every single position, but never a backup at defensive midfielder. And they play whoever is in that position, whether it was Fernandinho before him and Rodri now, every single game, every single important game, because they see that player as like the linchpin of the defense and kind of that transition and pressing style that they play. So in terms of value, I would say he might be even higher than number seven,
yeah.
but he's more someone just so frustrating to root against because of, again, the tactical fouls, just his incredible positioning. And then, of course, that 89th to 93rd minute thunderstrike that you know is going to come.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I appreciate what he is, but I just dislike him because he is like I'd say last season, if he was injured for a couple more games, because City drew
Yeah.
3 games in a row last season when Rodri was out. Like maybe 2 more games if he was injured, maybe we would have won the league. This season, when we actually have a chance, we are bottling it ourselves. He's an incredible player. The Thunder Strikes, which were a feature of his game the last couple of seasons, have started raising his profile as
Yeah.
an all-round player a lot more. He's not on my list, but again, this is favorite, not best. If this was best, he would be probably higher than number 7 in both of our lists. All right,
Okay.
moving into number 6 in 3, 2, 1.
So Mr. Yaya Toure, the Titan himself, definitely reminds me of the Titans on Attack on Titan in terms of that physical, dominating, hulking presence, and where people just bounce off him completely ineffectually. He was, I think, maybe the best non-Messi Ronaldo player in the world for a season,
Yeah,
and just such a force in on those Pellegrini teams. You just could do nothing with him. You couldn't take the ball from him. You couldn't keep the ball away from him if you had it. He could pass. He could shoot. He had great goal scoring contributions for a midfielder. He was completely dominant, breaking up counters and as a defensive presence. He could dribble. He was just a hulking presence that you could do nothing about. And that helplessness is something that very few players can create when you're playing with other professionals. But he is one of those players who make it look like it's high schoolers playing against middle schoolers.
Titan is a great word to describe him. I wish I'd used that. I will talk about Yaya Toure a little later. But I echo everything you've said and more. Absolute baller, absolute tank. My number 6 is Kyle Walker. In my opinion, the greatest right back in Premier League history. I think with time, Trent will surpass him. A big reason why Man City can play as high as they can is because Kyle Walker could give, at his peak, almost anyone 5 to 10 yards and still catch up with them comfortably. Incredible one-to-one defender. But I actually found him fun because the most fun thing about Kyle Walker was his blistering pace, right? Absolute speed and that acceleration, that top speed, and he liked to show it off. He wasn't shy about using it. You have some really fast players sometimes who only switch it on in key moments of the game. Kyle Walker was not like that. He wasn't shy about really turning the afterburners on. He is so defensively complete that a lot of times attackers don't even try to take him on. They just pass the ball away from him because he's that good. Recent games against Adama Traore sort of stand as evidence against that, but that's also against a 30-plus-year-old Kyle Walker. He's not the most attackingly adept, like you said. He doesn't do a lot of creative stuff, but when you're that defensively solid and when you're that fast, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, incredibly useful player. The speed kills. Like there's nothing you can do to replace that speed.
Yeah,
But also his decision making or just mentality to break every single counter and never ever like have a defensive lapse
yeah,
where he's out of position or where he tries to get too involved in the attack and slips out of position. That's been a bedrock for the Pep teams. And yeah, another great signing for City and kind of stalwart of this era.
yeah. All right, moving on to number 5 in. So, Leroy Sané is the most classical winger I've seen in recent times, right? Like proper Barclays chalk on the boots winger. Great dribbler, insane speed, more of an assister than a goal scorer, but still could do both. And was one of the best City players on one of their best iterations of teams, right? He wasn't here for a very long time in the Premier League, but I loved watching Leroy Sané. He was my favorite City player of those 2-3 years, and he was absolutely the most dangerous Bayern player last season when Arsenal played against Bayern. Despite his relatively short legacy with City, his imprint on my mind is so strong that he's number 5.
Yeah, I mean, he was just so explosive on the ball. I think the challenge I had was between Sane, Mahrez, Sterling. They've had so many of these like dynamic wingers that I didn't know who to put, so I kind of left all of them off. But Sane, especially, I think, felt the most purely explosive on the ball. So what you want from like a classic winger in terms of beat the guy one on one and then kind of set your striker up.
Yeah.
That really was Sane.
Yeah. I feel like he had the highest ceiling out of the three.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I loved Mahrez. I felt like Mahrez could unlock goals from nothing
Yeah, that's
better than
fair.
anybody else.
That's fair. But yeah, yours is Mr. Bernardo.
Mine is Mr. Bernardo, who I was surprised not to see higher on your list, honestly, because he is that kind of intelligent player who can play in tight spaces, who can play different roles, whether it's more of a 10, more of an 8, more of a winger. He can do kind of everything in that midfield, attacking midfield area. And every single dribble, every single feint seems to have a direct purpose around it. There's almost no wasted motion. He is Mr. Efficiency, which I think you called him earlier as well. And I think he's also one of the linchpins to the City attack, just
Yeah.
because he's just so direct despite his size that he can create things again out of very little going on. One of the most fun players to watch on the ball. I think in terms of dribbling, the closest to like Eden Hazard that I remember in the Premier League, in terms of that ability to like not use that many tricks, but just through feints, kind of slight body motions, get to the exact spot he wants, and there's not much any defender can do about it.
Yeah. So he's not on my list because it's favorite and not best. Again, best he would be in the top 10. I feel like City have had so many iconic physical presences that have captured my imagination. And there is a namesake of Bernardo that I felt and I still feel did it better. That I think Bernardo's more versatile, but in terms of peak sit, I feel like his namesake is higher. In terms of how good he is, look, man, you're not going to hear any arguments from me. He's an absolute baller, so intelligent, so versatile, can start for any team in the world and should start for any team in the world. Like, if you're not starting him, you're an idiot. Let me put
Yeah.
it that way. I absolutely rate him as a player, but favorite, oof, I can't say that given some of these City players.
Yeah, they've been oozing with talent. I may not completely disagree on the other Silva as well, which
Yeah.
we'll find out later about.
All right. So, number 4 in 3, 2, 1.
So my favorite goalkeeper in terms of pure entertainment was always Joe Hart. I love the goalkeeper who will blame the defenders for everything, will scream at everyone, and just has this insane arrogance and personality about him. I used to find him absolutely hilarious. I mean, there's the iconic video of him screaming at the like 13-year-old ball boy, "Give me the fucking ball." Um, I just always found him hilarious. I always felt like he was going to screw up, even though he did have a couple of seasons of being one of the best goalkeepers in the world. But there's just something about him which I just found unintentionally funny. And when it comes to a favorite list, it's just I like players with personality, and rarely you see a goalkeeper with so much personality and a goalkeeper with like classic main character energy.
Yeah.
Joe Hart had classic main character energy. He thought that this is like an anime about him, and he is the central character, which is just so funny when he's a goalkeeper. And towards the end, he started making a lot of mistakes, and I
Yeah.
used to find those entertaining as well. But I
Yeah.
just used to love seeing him just scream at his defenders. I think Jordan Pickford is like the modern version of it, where it's just like this angry man,
Yeah.
angry goalie. But he's just, I would say he's nowhere as close to as good as Ederson, but he's way more funny. And that is why he's on my favorite players list.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't think he was ever best goalkeeper in the world. I mean, you said main character in an anime energy. I was like, oh shit, Joe Hart's like Kuwabara.
Yeah, he is.
But yeah, I mean, fair enough pick, right? I remember his mistakes. I remember him being good for a while, and then obviously the
Yeah.
English hype that Joe Hart number one, England's number one, blah blah blah. Yeah, short-lived peak. Don't really remember much about him, but fair enough shout. My number 4 is the scorer of the most iconic goal in Premier League history. That goal, right? The thing that I love about that goal is obviously it's clutch. The repercussions and all that is one thing. The thing that I love about the goal is Balotelli puts him through. 99% of players would have shot it then. He takes an extra touch. He puts the defender down, he takes an extra touch, and then he blasts it near post, and that became the Aguero finish. If you go and look at his goal catalogue, Aguero always takes that extra touch, and then it's in the top corner the next second, right? That extra yard of space. The prime goal scorer of Man City till Haaland came about. Um, Few people score goals better than Sergio Aguero, right? He's not going to dribble past entire defenses like your Henry, Bale, Suarez, Ronaldo, Salas. He's not going to be super, playmakery like Harry Kane. He's going to be in the box and he's going to score. And he scored at a rate that only Henry surpasses. Like Aguero, like he's on the same level as Harry Kane and just like slightly behind Thierry Henry. And he's fifth on the all-time Premier League goal scorers list. He could have been higher if injuries didn't ruin so much of his career. Could have been second. Just such a good striker. Not the tallest or the fastest, but knew how to use his body, was built like a bull, and he just wouldn't miss. It felt inevitable that if Aguero got a shot on target, it's going to go in. If Kun plays, Kun scores. He was just so good at doing what he did, right? So yeah, kudos to Aguero.
Yeah, I'll get to Aguero soon. Just an incredible force, incredible player, complete
Yeah.
striker. Echo everything you said.
Okay, cool. Let's move on to number 3 in 3, 2, 1. So I said float because Muhammad Ali said he floats like a butterfly and stings like a bee. That's David Silva as well. I don't think I've ever seen him strike the ball with venom or force. It always felt like a gossamer, silky touch. And it floats into the goal. It floats into the path of a teammate. Undisputed starter for peak Spain. I felt like because he made everything look so easy, he's underrated. We spoke about this in our first episode as well when we were picking all-time Premier League 11s. That David Silva would probably fit into any of these midfields and he'd probably play better than all of them. Silky, equally effective as a winger and a midfielder. Top 10 Premier League midfielders of all time. You could make a case for top 5. One of the few players who looked equally good with hair and bald. I don't know how he did it. And yeah, just a fantastic player. Easily one of City's greatest ever players. One of my favorite players to watch. He was just so smooth, man. Just so smooth and silky.
Yeah, no, what incredible player. So silky, so fluid on the ball, and also someone I will be talking about soon.
Yeah.
But right before him, Mr. Vincent Kompany, who I have as the Rock of City. Joining right when the takeover completed in 2008, he was to me the transformative figure that brought City into its next era. I mean, David Silva also played a part, but Company really was that all-time center back who you could build around. You could replace whoever the other center back was, but you would still get a great defensive shift. And then the goal at Leicester is kind of that storybook finish, which you usually are expecting in like a video game or a movie or something like Goal, where you have the center back, the old captain, on his last legs again in a title chase, taking the ultimate like no, 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 it's the 86th minute. Why is the center back taking the shot? And then he just again like a Rodri thunderstrike, top corner to beat Leicester to keep City ahead of Liverpool in one of the best title races ever.
Yeah.
Um, Company was just he could do everything, and he also was that leader both for City and for Belgium. I don't think it's kind of a coincidence that after Company left Belgium, there was more infighting. He was kind of the unifying force there.
Yeah.
And at City, with all of the transfers that came in and kind of all of the pressure on everyone to perform, I think the importance of a captain like Company who can kind of unify the troops is huge, because the downside of buying all these great players is you have all the egos to manage. And I think who you have as the captain is really important. And Company was always that player for City, and that driving force behind their dominance.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely right. I mean, fantastic captain for City, fantastic defender, just had a presence about him.
Yeah.
Um, Amongst the greatest centre backs in Premier League history. I think you made a great point about him really being the glue that held Belgium together as well. Yeah, no, fair shout. All right, on to our number two in 3, 2, 1.
So, Aguero! Yeah, hard to go with anybody else in the top two. One of maybe my favorite striker to watch in the last 15 years of the Premier League,
Oh, wow.
and someone who I absolutely would have killed to have at Chelsea was Aguero. If it wasn't for his injuries, I think he would be considered maybe the second or third best striker in Premier League history. He still honestly should be, just because of the talent and the contributions he had. There was just something about him which was inevitable. And there was something about his coolness, calmness on the pitch as a striker, which was just remarkable. Especially with the reason I picked this picture with the hair is because he reminds me of Tom Cruise in Collateral with the blonde, bleached blonde hair, where he's an assassin. And he's just cool, calm, collected under pressure every single moment, whether it's assassinating someone or scoring goals. Like Aguero is never going to fail.
Yeah.
And he had the right foot, he had the left foot. Despite being on the shorter side, he would score some wonderful headed goals. You could play off him. If it wasn't for his injuries, I think he would be talked about in even a higher stratosphere. And he definitely, to me, is like in that top tier striker. Like I think if it's between him and Harry Kane, for a game, I still may pick Aguero over Harry Kane. That's how much I've enjoyed Aguero. And I also think he's a lot more fun. Like some of those shots are gorgeous. He could really do everything from a nice tactical finesse to a chip shot to just thunder hitting the ball into the corner, keeping this as PG as possible.
Yeah. No, I mean, you've covered and echoed like everything I said, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. My number two, honestly, Titan is a much better title for Yaya Toure. Another underrated City midfielder, another shout for top 10 Premier League midfielder of all time, but a very different type of player to David Silva, right? Where he was an absolute boss in midfield, which is why I use the term. He could pass, he could tackle, he could shoot, he could win headers, he could win duels. He had a top 5 all-time Premier League season in 2013-14. And the only reason it's not talked about is because Luis Suarez had like a demon of a season then. And he literally carried City to the title that season because he started off as DM in games, and then when they were behind, they just throw him on to AM or striker and he'd score or assist. He was a title winning level centre back, central midfielder, defensive midfielder, attacking midfielder, and striker rolled into one, right? You could play him in any of those positions and he would be title winning level in those positions. That's why he played at centre back for Barcelona. could played all three midfield roles for City, played a striker for City. Just an incredible force of nature. Like you said, he made people look like high schoolers, and he wasn't making like random people look like high schoolers, right? He was making elite, fully grown male athletes with like, pace, power of their own just look like absolute helpless school children. You'd just give up when Yaya Toure was in full flow. Utterly dominant, right? Because I didn't watch a lot of Patrick Vieira. For me, the most dominating central midfield presence that I've seen in the Premier League, right? I don't think anyone just made everyone around them just feel a level below so consistently. He used to have these like ridiculous finishes as well. Just a fantastic player, man. And one of my favorites in the Premier League, not just City. So that's why he's number two.
Oh yeah, I firmly believe I think 11 Yaya Toures beats 11 of any other player,
Oh yeah.
and I think boss is a great word because that's what he does. He just bosses the midfield. He bosses every part of the pitch he's on.
No, but he looks like a Titan. I think Titan
He
is a
does.
better word. All right.
Okay. I don't think there are any surprises for either of our number ones, but let's see.
Okay. In 3, 2, 1. Yeah, no surprises. For me, KDB is not just a top 10 PL midfielder. He's just not just top 5. I think he could be number one, right? His vision and passing is otherworldly, right? The trademark whip cross from the right, the through balls to Haaland, that ridiculous pass he made to Sane. But he's also one of the best sort of long range outside of the box shooters in Premier League history, and also one of the best weaker foot players. To have a goal catalog of great outside of the box goals with your weaker foot is not something too many players who can claim to have. Also, my favorite FIFA player, like FIFA 19 to 2022, 4-3-3 attack, KDB as CAM, just ball out, right? Great physical stats, decent pace, insane passing, good dribbling, and insane shooting. What more could you ask for from a player in that position? But just the sheer creative output. Like the reason I've said attack is he could pass, he could score, and it seems like that's the only thing he's interested in. He's not really going to play your tippy tappy, pass the ball around and keep the ball around kind of game a lot. One of the best counter attackers in the game. So exhilarating to watch. I know that maybe he didn't shine as much for Belgium, but I watch the Premier League week in week out, and he just absolutely sets that stage on fire. The best player of the 2010s, with all due respect to Mohamed Salah, right? KDB doesn't talk much, but with the ball, you just let him speak.
No, that's a wonderful way to say it because he can put some English on that ball.
So that was his Players Tribune article. Let me speak, and
Let
the
me speak.
article was beautiful.
Uh, so in basketball, when you can spin the ball any way you want to, it's called putting English on the ball because
Okay.
like you're talking to the ball and telling
Yeah.
it what to do, and that's what KDB can do. He
Yeah.
can literally with his foot talk to the ball and tell it what to do. And he's one of those players who can pull off things that nobody else can. So even
Yeah.
though I had him lower on the list, that's more through loyalty to Eden Hazard than any critique of KDB as a player. Sometimes I feel like he looks a little too disinterested on the pitch, and then suddenly you get like one of those moments where he just gets all fired up, scores a goal, and you're like, oh, this guy really does care, and this guy is going to just brutally destroy whatever defense is in front of him. To me, he's the only irreplaceable player of the City attack. I
Yeah.
think every other attacking player, even Haaland, you can figure a way around, except KDB, where there really is no way to have a like-to-like replacement for KDB, which is kind of the ultimate tribute you can get.
Speaking of putting English on the ball,
Yeah.
David Silva could do that as well.
Oh yeah. So for me, I had a smaller magician later, but this guy was the magician for City, and he is the first player that I thought was truly world class, along with, of course, Company, who played for City, and this was like the awakening into oh shit, the United Chelsea era is pretty much done. City is here, and City is here to stay, and he was the linchpin of it.
Yeah.
There are players that I love who are ones who can navigate tight spaces, and I think that to me is always the most attractive part of football. Someone who can take that little centimeter, that inch, and know exactly what to do with it, how to position their body, how to lean, how to move the ball into that tight space. And David Silva was, I think, the best at it.
Yeah,
Better than Bernardo, better than Phil Foden, better than a lot of incredible City players, and I think maybe better than anybody else in the Premier League. Just
yeah,
that ability to find that tiny crevice of space and to figure out what to do with it. Part of the golden era for Spain, consistently one of the few players who could break into that. I mean, that Spanish midfield we've talked about a lot of times, how insanely good it was and how insane it is for any player to be able to be a part of it. But David Silva was someone who you would change your lineup to include,
yeah,
change your formation to include. He shockingly has so few individual awards. He won Player of the Month once, never won Player of the Year. KDB has won it multiple times, has won Player of the Month so many times. He was on, I think, the Team of the Year only a couple of times. So
yeah,
in terms of awards and recognitions, David Silva was never there. But in terms of pure flair, charisma on the pitch,
yeah,
it's just there's just something beautiful about watching like the Iniestas and David Silvas of the world.
yeah,
And to me, he was like the Iniesta who happened to play in the Premier League.
yeah. I think that's a fair comparison. David Silva is an absolute magician. Also Asian representation. I don't know if you know this. His mom is
Yes.
Japanese.
Yep. Yep.
So not that we are Japanese, but still. Uh,
Continent United.
continent united. Uh, but yeah, that's our list, guys. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Who are the best or your favorite City players? Let us know in the comments. To our billions of listeners, millions of viewers, and 5 friends. This is MGK and Tayal signing off from episode 9 of the Screen and Pitch Project.
Thank you, everyone.